What is feminism? We've all heard of feminism. The term's kicked around all the time, often as a term of abuse. But most people who use the word don't know what it means. So what are the core ideas of feminism? In its simplest terms, the feminist argument has two parts. The first is about women's role in society, and the second is about the cultural beliefs that make that role appear natural and reasonable. So let's start by talking about the woman's role. The crux of the feminist argument is that we live in a society in which money is the basis of status, power, and personal autonomy. The things that are highly valued are worth a lot of money, whether it's jobs, houses, or cars. Money's also the basis of freedom. If you have the money, you can choose where you live, where you go, and what you do. And if you don't have any money, you don't have those choices. It's against this backdrop that we traditionally had a division of labour in which men went out to do society's paid work, and it was culturally decreed that it was women's role to do the unpaid work. For feminists, the problem with this division of labour was not simply that women were corralled into a life not of their choosing, or the low status of the role. The real problem was that it put women in a position of economic dependence. Men controlled the money and were able to command subservience. Women lacked bargaining power in relationships because they couldn't walk away if they were treated badly. For the same reason, feminists have argued that it's important for women to be able to control their fertility. If women have no choice about taking on the enormous amount of unpaid work that comes with raising kids, then they have no choice about being in a position of economic dependence. The second part of the feminist argument is about a cultural belief system, often called sexism. This part of the argument is that there's a set of cultural beliefs which makes this division of labour appear natural and reasonable, to the extent that the injustice becomes invisible. These cultural beliefs cast men and women as opposites. They painted men as rational and women as emotional, men as strong and women as weak, men as aggressors and women as victims. In this schema, men were the leaders and women were the natural servers of society. Feminists argue that these beliefs naturalise the gendered division of labour so much that we don't even see it. Further, they also argue that these beliefs hamper women when they do take on roles in paid work. The pervasiveness of these beliefs mean that when men and women are performing in objectively the same way, women's performance will be perceived to be lower. Take the results of this 1980s study of scientists' perceptions of the quality of scientific work. They were given identical research papers where the only thing that had been changed on them was the gender of the name on the paper. Identical work was perceived to be of much higher quality when the readers assumed it had been done by a man than when they assumed it had been done by a woman. This is why there continues to be a gender wage gap where men are paid higher salaries than women who are objectively doing the same work. For the same reasons, men are more likely to be promoted than women who are just as competent. Feminists argue that the combination of the burden of doing society's unpaid work and the sexist belief system is why women are underrepresented amongst the leaders of our society and are hugely overrepresented amongst the poor and the disadvantaged. The problem's structural, and it's not about individual performance.